Hello, welcome to the Big Strategy Podcast. I'm your host and fellow strategist, Jeff Eyet. This is your go-to spot for real talk with the masterminds of business strategy. It's about sharing stories, insights, and those little nuggets of wisdom to help you unlock big growth. Let's turn the key and spring into action. Welcome, everyone. What's most exciting to me is AI implementations. Not so much what the technology is, but how it's actually being used. And today we have an awesome conversation with Fred Flores and Peter Swain. Fred's going to give us the current state in a manufacturing use case, and Peter's going to overlay that, his experience, and also in industry, but also his experience with AI implementations, and hopefully give the executives on this episode a chance to understand how AI is disrupting what could be very traditional industries and how to set yourself ahead. So without further ado, Fred, I'll kick it to you first for a brief introduction.
Thank you, Jeff. I have started my career in engineering and have continued to build over the years. I have led engineering teams around the world, working for both Mary Kay and Albertsons. And today, as Jeff said, I want to share some of those stories that I have, and I won't go into the specifics about Albertsons, my most recent venture, but I will give highlights from our partner that we worked with at Albertsons. I worked with a young engineer at Albertsons named Macario and Solomon from RoboFlow, and we not only worked on the quality control implementation of AI at Albertsons, but also Solomon shared how other industries, and I'll go into more details in those other industries about the examples of implementing AI from a vision perspective.
Well, I can say, Fred, I have not viewed the milk in my refrigerator the same since our conversation. So, but I don't want to give it away too much. And Peter, we're honored to have you join us as an AI expert, not only in terms of the technology, but more specifically in helping companies and governments with that implementation. So if you wouldn't mind, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, happily. And thank you again for having me here. And thank you for the people that are still listening. And thank you for the people at the end that are still listening then. But my name is Peter Swain. I started coding when I was 6, sold my first application at 12. And when I was 17, I got handed this bright yellow flyer by this guy called Tim Berners-Lee, who was the inventor of HTML. So I did what any rational kid would do and quit high school and became one of the first web developers in the world. I had the 30-second listing on Yahoo. I was the lead developer for the UK version of Yelp, yelp.co.uk. And really since then, I've been in a kind of disruption and technology space. I ran one of the first mobile agencies in Europe, working for people like Apple, Microsoft, Google, Gordon Ramsay, Jamie Oliver, McDonald's, Adidas, Nike, you name it. I decided to skip social media. I wasn't particularly fond of what I thought that was going to do. And in the last couple of years, I've been saying, we got to get ready for AI. We got to get ready for AI. We got to get ready for AI, because AI is an inflection point of multiple different technologies of automation, robotics, self-driving, drones, as well as what we're talking about at the moment, which is this generative AI, this Gen AI. And as they come in, they're hitting every sector, every industry, every geography all at once. So it is an acceleration that is redefining the word exponential. And I'm pleased to be at the terrified forefront of that as I try and navigate a path for it for myself and my community.
Wonderful. And I always go back to my aha moment. And I was teaching, and one night during the dinner break, one of my students just kind of offhand said, every CS project at Berkeley is AI. And I said, well, shoot, I don't understand it well enough to explain to my students. And that started my journey. So before we jump into this, I think it's a fun little grounding. Fred, let me ask you, what was your aha moment when you realized that AI was here to stay?
Well, and I think what's always near and dear to my heart is safety. And, according to OSHA in the United States alone, each year, 100 people lose their lives with forklift to people collisions, right? Forklifts running into people in manufacturing environments. And over 700 people lose their lives in the U.S. alone to reaching into machinery, getting too close to running equipment. And what I saw through this vision technology that just blew me away was the ability to alert the forklift driver that there is pedestrians in his vicinity. And just like we see on some automobiles where the seat of the forklift can vibrate to alert, the forklift can also automatically be shut off. And the same goes with proximity alerts in and around manufacturing equipment. So if an individual gets too close to a moving piece of equipment, it can both alert and, if necessary, shut the equipment down. That, to me, is a game changer.
And Peter, is Fred's situation, is his aha unique, or is this something that you see across industries as you talk about AI? What gives people that aha moment?
So it's an interesting thing. We call it an Excalibur moment. And the reason we call
that's so British.
Yeah. But the reason for it is that aha infers some form of enlightenment.
Yeah.
And it's been quite rare that I've actually seen people become enlightened when they have that moment. And an Excalibur moment refers to this kind of weapon, King Arthur weapon of like, well, it could forge a kingdom or it could divide a kingdom. And the power of AI, quite frankly, is near godlike. And for us to have been gifted that power now, when I'm very sure we're not ready for it, is both amazing and exciting and terrifying at the same time. So it's how do we plot that path? But yeah, every single person that we've trained and taught, which is over 10,000 now, I've watched almost half of them back away from the keyboard. When they see the first thing and they literally go, like, I watch them like take their hands away from it and like, it didn't just do that. I'm like, yes, it did just do that. As they start realizing the power of it. But my first one was, and I get them every couple of weeks because I spend my life in here. But my first one was writing a children's book for my son. My son was struggling to read. And I was like, I went to Amazon to buy a book for him. And I was like, I wonder if AI can do this. So I logged into Jet, the name for my AI. And I was like, hey, Jet, what process would a kid's author follow to write a book? I'm like, do you reckon we can do that? Yeah, we can. And 30 minutes later, I've got a book aimed for Sam called Sam the Space Pirate Visits the Mutant Moon. It's his reading age. It's his wording. It's his storylines. It's the things I know that he's going to respond to. And he went from having a reading age of a 4-year-old when he was 6. He's now 7, and he has a reading age of a 10-year-old. Because I've made him 6 or 7 of these books, and each time he gets through it, I make it slightly harder so it's perfectly adjusted for him, his subjects, his thought process, his mentality. And that was the first moment when I'm like, this is meaningful. I've just achieved something in my life that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to achieve.
And you helped him achieve something in his life, which is really goes to the power of this technology. It's not so much what it does for us, but it's creating those knock-on effects down the line. And Fred, to use the phrase knock-on effect to you, would you help us set up this scenario that we're looking at? What was the challenge you were facing? And was AI the first tool that you thought of, or had you tried other aspects? Set the stage for us, if you don't mind.
Yeah, and although I'm going to give detailed examples in other industries, what brought my attention first to AI was working with the newest engineer that joined my team at Albertsons. His name is Elcario Matos, and he had been experimenting with AI in a previous role before coming to Albertsons. And so he researched several different companies and landed upon RoboFlow and Solomon Levy, who became our first introduction. And not just starting with the traditional sales pitch, but coming in with a load of questions for us as to be able to start that information learning side about how the applications could unfold, but also the early part of building trust between us and RoboFlow, which later evolved into trust on the manufacturing floor.
Yeah, Fred, you talk about something that I want to get Peter's opinion on, and that is, Peter, where the heck does trust, this human emotion, play into what is supposed to be a technological solution?
Well, that's a great question. So I was trying not to eulogize here. So we refer to 3 levels of AI. We talk about Gen AI, the thing we're using right now. Then we have systemic AI, where we replace systems with AI systems. And then you get agentic AI, where you replace the humans that were using the systems with agents going to use the systems. So if you look at that kind of ascension, the whole ascension gets stopped because you need humans to implement the technology that's going to take their jobs, which doesn't necessarily result in lots of trust of people like, yay. So we don't actually refer to this as a technology, and we don't refer to it as a tool. We refer to it as an intelligence. Calling it a technology, in my mind, is a bit of a misnomer because it means you treat it like a technology, which means you treat it like a tool, which means you start using words like it didn't work. And then we then look at other examples of this, and one of my favorites is the word prompt engineering. Excuse my language, and I'll try and be not too bad, but what a load of crap. Because I've seen good engineering, and like in my Ford, when I turn the wheel left, it goes left, and when I turn my wheel right, it goes right, and when I press the accelerator, it goes forwards, and when I press the brake, it stops.
That's great engineering.
That's great engineering. Repeatable process, reliable output. Anyone that's used AI for more than 10 minutes knows that every time you use it, you get a completely different outcome. So if that is engineering, it's some of the worst engineering I've ever seen in my life. But what does it more closely resemble? It more closely resembles an intelligence. Like the three of us could have rehearsed this 10 times over, and you could have said, right, I want you to say that, and you say that, and you say that, and you say that. We had got it. And then we'd come on here, and that is not what we would have done.
Correct.
Because humans have reticular activating systems, we have amygdalas, we have prefrontal cortexes, we are experiencing the world through our own prism, and artificial intelligence is experiencing the world through its own prism. I'm not claiming it's sentient, but my dog isn't sentient, but my dog is intelligent, but my dog is not self-aware. So if I'm willing to anthropomorphalize my dog, which I do, people say that your dog is happy. No, it's not. Happy is a human emotion. My dog is approximating something that my human understanding puts into the word happy. So if you start looking at artificial intelligence as an intelligence, then actually it's more of a communication skill than it is a technological skill.
And I want to pause on that because that is exactly the point, and one that I hope we can deeply drive into this discussion. Fred, so you've identified this opportunity, but just literally you and your engineer, you're working with RoboFlow, but before you worked with RoboFlow, what was the problem? I mean, did you have an accident with a forklift? Was it someone too close to a machine? Was it just some efficiency you were seeking to gain? What was that initial spark?
Well, as in Albertsons, as any manufacturing company, you want to focus on safety, productivity, etc. And as we brought RoboFlow in and started going through those opportunities, it became apparent that there were some big wins in similar manufacturing environments but different industries. And one of them was in the windows and door area manufacturing, where a manufacturer integrated their vision technology, which is the same we did at Albertsons. And there they focused on the texture, label alignment, color variation within the manufacturing process. So get the cameras to see it, understand it through the help of AI, then allow actions to be taken. So in this case with the window and door company, they reduced their customer returns by 60% by catching those defects early, so they didn't leave the production floor and reach the customers. And then a second big win that they shared with us was in the drywall industry, and very dissimilar to a dairy industry, but a very similar problem from the standpoint that defects cause hours of downtime. If you don't catch a defect early enough, it results in hours upon hours of lost time, whether it's re-sanitizing a production line because you lost the sterility because you had a jam that stopped the machine, and then people had to intervene to clear the jam. But what Solomon walked through us with the example at the drywall company was they were having pileups and jams and resulting in hours upon hours of lost downtime. And so they, again, implemented real-time alerts all the way up to and including automatic rejection prior to the component getting to the point where it would cause a halt of the production line, i.e. a jam. And in this case, they saved around 3,000 hours a year by just early detection of the jams in the drywall manufacturing, which is equivalent to about 37 shifts. So very, very, very significant, again, with cameras and the AI utilization behind the scenes. And as Peter has said, very well that the AI is not a tool, but as a manufacturer, I view the implementation of AI as part of my toolbox.
Interesting. Well said. And Peter, when I hear that defects or customer returns are down by 60%, is that something where the humans were just not as capable at a task? Were they put into a task where they couldn't win? Were they given systems that prevented them from being successful? Or is it just that the AI is that much smarter?
Well, smart is a subjective term right now. But
yeah,
one of the things that we make a mistake with as humans is our perception of acceptable quality levels is actually very, very skewed. And I always use the example of Budweiser. Budweiser has been is the most successful beer in the world, full stop, bar none. There's no one that even gets close to what Budweiser has achieved. Yeah, Budweiser has never appeared in the top 100 best beers in the world. So quality is not the driver for humanity. Just never has been. We'd like to pretend it is. So when we say the humans couldn't do the job, no, well, the humans were pretty bad at the job. Even Federer won less than 50% of the points that he ever played. So the best tennis player that has ever lived, full stop, had a less than 50% win rate. We just celebrated Rory McIlroy winning the Masters and finishing his slam. Well, it took him 15 years to get there. I mean, the best in the world took 15 years to achieve it. If you actually look at the quality level of humans, you teach at Berkeley, right? You spend your life grading. What is an A nowadays? I mean, in the UK, you can scrape an A in some of the classic studies at 65%. Like 65% is an A. When you say to me, oh, this person got an A, my hallucination is that means they must have scored 95% on something. But
correct.
But that isn't the case.
That's not the case.
So we have a couple of things happening here. One, unlike humans, AI gets better in every iteration. Us horrible carbon-based life forms, we need to do these things called sleep, and we need to go to the restroom, and we need to rest, and we need water and hydration. And if we do that, we might be productive for an hour to an hour and a half in a burst, and then we need a break. AI, every iteration it does, it's learning from itself without any ego protecting itself from its own judgment.
That ego is getting in the way.
Yep.
Of us. Is that our downfall?
100%. Humans will go, when we get qualified feedback from somebody, then one of our first instincts is to go, are you attacking me? Am I in danger here? Do I need to defend myself? Should I reject it? How's other people going to think about this? How's this going to affect my career? We have asked 100 questions before we've asked the question, hang on a second. Maybe this person is just trying to help me improve. And the people that rapidly do improve throughout life are the people that can take feedback from others. That is a very rare human. It is a 1% human that can actually take feedback and go, okay, fair enough. I'll go and do that again. Whereas AI, we ran an experiment in a lending company in Latin America. And one of the big AI players, like top 3, came to us and said, we want to work with you because we want access to your data. We've done 14 million lending decisions in the last 10 years, and a lending application is a very, very rich data source. So we want your data. I'm like, okay, I'm good with that as long as you don't sell it to our competition. We can work with that. They went, give us a project. And I went, okay, completions. Now, completions is an industry term for us that meant you've requested a loan, and something isn't matching from the data that we got from the credit bureau, like your address is wrong or your pay slips doesn't match what you say. And we have 32,000 completions in the backlog. And we can't make a lending decision until this completion is finished. We have a call center of 20 people, and they get through an average of 1,000 a day. Okay, that's the math. So this company came in and implemented a voice agent to call the person to clarify the completion in Mexican Spanish, Peruvian Spanish, and Argentinian Spanish. And we're talking about the addresses is the third postbox on the left in some of these cases. This is not easy structured data. We cancelled the trial after 7 hours because they had finished. There wasn't any completions left to do. They had done all of them. All of them. All 32,000. They outperformed our team of 20 call center agents that had 3 years of training on average, that are doing 1,000 in 20 people, 8 hours, 160 man hours doing 1,000. And in 6 hours, this thing did 32,000. In the first hour, its success rate was near 0. near zero. It was terrible. But every call it did and every conversation it had, it learned the phraseology it needed, the timing, the pauses, the spaces. It learned everything it needed to learn without us telling it. We didn't say, you should have this. We gave it the script that the call center used as its starting point. But by the end of the day, there was no completions left to do.
At the Berkeley Innovation Group, we are a strategy consultancy and AI advisory firm focused on mid-market companies looking to unlock big growth. In contrast to management consultants' typical top-down, hypothesis-driven approach, Big uses a curiosity-inspired, bottom-up approach, leveraging customer insights to drive strategy co-creation. Learn more about our approach by downloading our ebook at biginnovates.com/ebook. Now, back to the show.
That's a fascinating example of just what we talked about, the inefficiency of humans being that delta. And so, Fred, looking at from a manufacturing perspective, maybe you want to zero in exactly on that use case you were talking about, and what were the inefficiencies that you identified? And was AI the first tool that you looked at, or were there other tools that you looked at as you thought about that inefficiency?
Well, from the perspective of manufacturing, and when I left Albertsons, I decided I wanted to start my own company, Strategic Catalyst Solutions, and we want to be able to deliver strategy in the execution realm, because it's great to have strategy, but far fewer can execute that strategy, and it involves having trust, like was one of the main factors we had to build in the workforce, but knowing which problems we were trying to solve. That was involved through the questioning that we went through with RoboFlow about what did you try, what worked, what didn't work, and so basic. And this is true for the other examples as well, that just trying to inspect quality in, pull defects out as they occur. Yes, you keep them from going to the consumer's hands, but you wreak havoc in your manufacturing environment, i.e. by causing a significant amount of downtime with each one of those disruptions. So for us, it was, how do we learn early enough when that defect is just materializing at a point where we can say, okay, if this continues, it's going to result in a jam. Whether you're building windows or you're building drywall or you're filling milk in a dairy. And so that's the line of questioning we went through to identify those specific points where you could, early enough where the line was still functioning well, right, and maintaining its standards, but not waiting to the point where the degradation took place and caused that 8-hour jam. So in a nutshell, it was learning that watching a line and looking at the statistics of rejects, etc., is not by any means enough. You have to not only understand why the jams are happening, so that early part about understanding your downtime and what was driving it was important, but the golden moment is to be able to stop it from causing, recognizing the potential fault developing and stopping it before it causes downtime on the line. Like I said, in that example of the drywall company saving, over 37 shifts by just early recognition, getting that alert that's provided through AI, and having the human interface get involved and stop the process. And if the human doesn't stop the process timely enough, it will self-reject.
So Fred, in the existing situation, where were humans doing that defect analysis, or where were they looking for those challenges in the workflow?
Regardless which of the environments I described, it was human spotters, quality control personnel, etc., and trained operators, and even down to the mechanic level, about looking for potential problems in pre-flighting lines, watching them as they ran, and downtime analysis after runs, looking back after production runs to see the data from that perspective. But again, that's after the fact. Better to look at it and be predictive of what you're seeing today, as that fault starts progressing, but not far enough to stop your line, but early enough to recognize it as a potential concern.
You're exactly right. Is if you go back into when Toyota invented their system, it was the American manufacturers famously had parking lots full of cars with defects at the factory because they didn't catch the defect until after it came off the line.
Right.
And then Toyota moved that defect spotting to the manufacturing process, but that still relied on, as you said, a trained human spotter, right? It still relied on that intervention. And Peter, today, that's changing with technology. And it's no longer just, oh, well, Fred's been making milk jugs for 20 years. He just has an eye for these things. You talked about the different types of AI before. And when I talk to folks who are selling products, vendors, they always just, oh, we put some AI, like it's fairy dust and it just fixes the problem. But give us a little bit of a deeper dive. What are the questions that really forward-thinking companies are asking? And then what are the technologies, cut through the buzzwords and the hype, and what is really being used in those places where Fred was talking about the most impact was being made?
So the first question any self-respecting CEO or leader in AI should be asking is, what is the lowest hanging, least disruptive project we can put in place? And the reason I say that is because this isn't something you can intellectually understand. We can be on as many podcasts and webinars as we like, but as you refer to it as like the aha moment or the Excalibur moment of I just put my hands on it, it changes the way you think about it. Because humans are great at saying, oh, this thing kind of looks like that thing.
Right.
This thing I've experienced before, this is what that is, got it, and I'll work from there. That's how our brains work. We have to have a neural connection in order to start the process. This thing doesn't look like anything you've ever seen. Like, I just scouts on a promise, anyone doing this, if you think this is a 5 or 10% increase in efficiency, you're wrong. This is, your entire world is about to change and become something very, very different. So the first thing I recommend to everyone is just do something. Like, do a customer service project. Do something so that you're now having a real conversation about AI instead of a hypothetical conversation about AI. And don't make that something that's super risky or something that's going to, hurt somebody or cost money. Just put it somewhere so that you can see the impact on the humans. You can see the humans in your organization that go, oh, this is fantastic, I can now do more X, Y, Z, versus the humans that go, this is terrible. There was a university professor in America, this is ages ago, that when the internet came around, he decided to cancel all of his lectures, pre-film all of the lectures for the year, send all the lectures out to his students, and use all the lecture time to do seminar time in his office, open hours, so he could dive into the specific questions. Every question was recorded, and every question was put into an FAQ. And he had have you looked at the tech before you comment? As long as you've looked at the tech, if you still don't understand it, come and speak to me. Which means he was more available than any other professor on campus.
Yes.
Right? And they fired him at the end of the year because he didn't fulfill his obligation of X amount of hours of lecture time. But his results were 3 times that of everybody else, but it didn't count. He still got fired. So we have to put these technologies into place like he did with web, but we have to put it into place with AI in order to understand the impact of the thing. That'd be the first thing I'd say to people. The second thing is the build it or buy it conversation. And to me, I was given this by an early mentor of it's very, very simple. If it's going to go on your balance sheet, you build it. And if it isn't, you rent it. It's the simplest choice in the world. If you're going to put this on your balance sheet, it's going to be part of your IPO, part of your exit, part of your company validation, then you should build it and own it. If you are not going to do that, you let the expert come in that's already figured out all of the hoops, all the problems that they're going to need to go through to do it. So in the case of like RoboFlow, any manufacturing engineering facility isn't going to put the fact that they have AI vision on forklifts as part of their balance sheet. I'm not saying it's not a crazy important thing to do. I'm just, it's not going to be part of their valuation.
Right.
Therefore, go to somebody who's already made the 800 mistakes, because that's all you do ever is you just pay for somebody to get the shortcut to not make the mistakes. That's all we all do. Like, why are we using a podcast platform? Well, because the 3 of us didn't want to build our own because it was taking us 2 years, which would have been inconvenient. We're always just buying in convenience and speed.
Yeah.
So the first lesson I say to everybody is just go and do it. Stop talking about it and go and do it. Go and do a 10K, a 20K, a 50K, a pilot project, something so that your organization can start going, oh, wow, that's what this means. Because the numbers are numbers that you're not used to. Because normally if you're running any kind of established entity, if you were to get a 1% win, you'd be celebrating. It'd be like shareholder alert worthy.
Yes.
If you go from 1 billion to 1.1 billion. AI doesn't deal with 1%. AI deals with the opposite model. In the case of forklift safety, it now becomes the exception to the rule instead of the rule.
Yes.
It's exactly the flip. So put something in place, number one. And number two, if you're going to put it on your balance sheet, go and hire a bunch of AI devs and build the thing. And if you're not, get the expert in and say, great, how much does this cost? Thanks very much.
Yep. It's the classic mental model of inversion. You can multiply by 10% or you can divide by 10%. And that's what AI is doing. But Fred, so to leverage what Peter just said is, when you face this challenge, what did you do? What was the first pilot that you put forward? For example, let's just use the milk line as an example, if you can. Like, there's probably a lot of places to start. How did you narrow that down to actually understanding where to begin?
Well, and as Peter has pointed out in one of his recent books, that trust in AI is very important, and leadership's role is to build that trust. So one of the things that we did initially, as those other companies did, was have workshops with the workforce on the floor, right? The mechanics, the operators, and explain to them what we were trying to do and the technology we were wanting to use. And leadership essentially said, hey, AI is here to stay. We want to embrace it, but we want you to help us unlock the opportunity and understand that, that the immediate fears, people have is it's going to take their job away. And we made certain, as did the others, to make certain that they understood this was going to amplify their success, not replace them. So that was the first step in those workshops, to get them involved and showing them test cases and getting them to bulletproof the test cases in a very simple and meaningful way, was whether or not a milk jug has a handle on it. And if it doesn't have that handle, or it's misformed, it can cause a jam in any dairy, and cause up to 8 hours of downtime to re-sanitize the line after the mechanic has reached in to pull out that jam.
So Fred, if I'm playing the cynical manager, I'll say, well, a human can find that. Why do I need to spend this money?
Well, because the subtle changes that the AI is able to see by looking at all the SCADA real time on the production line through the help of the camera, can see that problem start in a very, very early phase. Like, you may have had just a slightly misaligned handle, and then the next time, it's a full missing handle, right? And then it can't do its orientation, etc. So it's really about that. Even if you had a person standing on the line, the most alert person, they're not going to be able to process at the speeds of that these jugs are going by them, the discrete details and the dimensions of the jug as it passes by. But the camera is able to check multiple points, to check the dimension, to make certain that it's not skewing to a point that indeed could cause a jam.
And Peter, this goes back to what you shared, is that you're assuming that every employee is well rested, attentive at every moment of the day, and can spot those nuances because of their track record. Where, as Fred's saying, is that sometimes those changes are so small, they're undiscernible to the naked eye, and we don't know until we have catastrophe. So when an executive pushes back at the expense of an AI implementation, is that something that you would talk about? Is that ability to catch it early and the value of that? Is that a key to any kind of ROI conversation, or just a general objection overcoming?
Probably, but I'm a little bit more contentious than you.
Fire away.
So I would just say, okay, well, let's not do it. Let's just wait for everyone else to do it. Why don't we just spend the time polishing up your LinkedIn, because you're going to be looking for a job soon? My outline has always just been through, the one person that's always wrong in a conversation about any tech is the person that says, oh, it will never.
Yeah.
You're just wrong. I can't say it'll be today or tomorrow or next week or next month, but I guarantee it's going to happen, because technology by its very nature is consistently improving. So it is inevitable that it reaches a point where it gets what we're trying to get done. So the line to me is whenever I get those people pushing back, it's always somebody that hasn't done an AI project. And it's like, okay, so this is like me saying, well, the calorie deficit of weight loss doesn't work. And then somebody says, well, have you tried going on a diet? And I say, no. Well, okay, so if you want to have a conversation with me, prove me wrong.
Right.
Like, let's do
some research.
Yeah. Do a 20K project, a 10K project, a 50. Like, find the metric inside the business that you can identify and say, if we move this metric, it would make a meaningful difference to this business. And then come out to people like me and AI experts and say, okay, how would you move that metric in my business? And give us the opportunity, give the industry the opportunity to go like this. And at which point I haven't found a single person then does push back. Then it's like, okay, what next? What next? What next? What next? Because all of those limitations of, sleep and rest and food, and then we talk about boyfriends and girlfriends and husband and wives, and then we talk about kids that come home for holidays, then we talk about parents that sadly get dementia, then we talk about inter-country conflict and all of these things that preoccupy the human mind. AI is just going, no problem. You just want me to spot whether it's got a handle? Got it. Thanks very much. Hold my beer.
And not a Budweiser, apparently, because it's...
by the way, I love Budweiser. I'm just
no, it's cool. I love to tell that joke.
I just find it fascinating because I've spent my life working for myself because I'm eminently unemployable because I call people strong names when I disagree with them. I've never had to deal with the politics of a company. And I'm not very good at dealing with the politics of the company because I will literally just call someone something and then walk away. Because what entrepreneurs see opportunity in change. So as soon as there's a change, an entrepreneurial mind goes, oh, here's an opportunity. Employees see, or non-entrepreneurial thinking sees, is they see fear in change. They want everything to stay as is. And then we accept the status quo. So we accept lines like 700 people die in machine-related accidents every year. And that just becomes the baseline. So if somebody gets it to 650, then everyone's like, great job. And if we get the 100 down to 80, everyone's like, wow, you really achieved something. Whereas AI thinking kind of goes, well, what if we get it to 0? We still have that problem?
Yeah.
Like, that's a ridiculous problem.
Well said.
Let's stop that problem right now. I think that's where AI gets fascinating. And, I'm not necessarily a fan or otherwise, but it's very much like an Elon Musk type thinking of going, hang on a second, the raw ingredients for the ship cost $6,000, but the thing cost $98 million. Something is seriously wrong in this equation.
Yeah.
And it took, I don't know how many years, 50 years? 1966 space landing, up to 2000, 50 years of people accepting that was the number until somebody else comes along and goes, well, that's crazy.
Right.
And I think with AI, we finally have some of those tools with the caveat of just try a small implementation. Don't listen to a word I'm saying. Don't listen to a word Fred's saying. Don't listen to us. Try it for yourself. Make it your own experience and find the win. And I'm pretty confident you'll come around to our side of the equation.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Fred, so you talked about, jug handles and if that's where we want to go. And it seems like when you're talking on the floor, workshopping how this is going to go, you may have had some resistance, and we've kind of touched on that. So let's get ahead to that point where, irregardless, the pilot's going forward. And so what? Was it all rainbows and roses? Were there challenges along the way? Tell us about that struggle you went through during that time, and then how it came out on the other side.
Yeah, in all the examples I cited, it is essentially utilizing AI in conjunction with vision technology to gather thousands upon thousands of data points, real time, right? So which data points to gather? Seems obvious to you at first, may not be the driver, right? And so by having those individuals that do that job every day, be a part of the testing process in these workshops, seeing what worked, and sometimes you say, I told you that parameter didn't matter. The opacity of the jug is just not, something we need to worry about. Now, on the other hand, opacity of the jug may not cause, how much clarity there is in the jug is what I mean by the opacity. It may not cause a jam, but a consumer doesn't want to drink milk out of a brown milk jug either. So it matters, but focusing it down to say, this technology can both identify, out of color spec as well as dimensional. But just paring that down with working with the workforce, those people, again, that do it every day to get meaningful test scenarios. As Peter said, AI is just an intelligence, right? And you got to train it. And part of that training process is going through those testing models, and RoboFlow great at understanding and manipulating the models as we work through them, regardless of industry. But that's where it comes back to learning, but learning from the environment, those people doing the work.
Yeah. You talk about that in even in machine learning. We don't even have to get to AI, but the amount of data that you collect, again, this gets to that human bias. It's easy to say, well, opacity doesn't matter because we're so myopic on jug handles. But like you said, no one wants to drink brown milk. And if I didn't collect that data, I wouldn't be able to make that connection, or the machine learning wouldn't be able to make that connection. Peter, this was a great example that Fred gave us, but I want to put your glasses on, if you will, and just project a little bit further for us. Let's say I'm sold and I do a pilot or I have done a pilot and I'm successful. And I'm actually thinking about how to make this a more central part of my strategy. What do you advise folks to do, and be it from an organizational growth standpoint, but also from where the technology is probably going to pull us in the not too distant future? So if you wouldn't mind.
It's an interesting one. The first thing is, I think it's a C-suite role. I think Chief AI Officer is a C-suite role because it has so many different component parts. We have a security part as we're using this external system. Like RoboFlow is processing all of that data. So that's a question that we want to isolate there. We have technology issues. We have information issues. We certainly have human issues. We have innovation issues. We have sales issues. So first thing is look at the board makeup and go, okay, we need somebody that has this in their sights. The second thing, and I find this quite scary, is how many people really don't understand their own business. Of like literally, what are the metrics that make this business work, and what are the metrics that don't make this business work, so that you can actually identify where you need to apply innovation. I can't remember who it was that said innovation at the non-weakest point is a waste of time and energy, but it was could have been Edward Deming. But anyway, somebody important said, don't innovate where you don't need it. Mm-hmm. Innovate where you need it. Put it in my dumb terms. Innovate where you need it. So what is business? Business is two things. It's a bunch of drama and a bunch of math. So if we focus back on the math, we're like, okay, what is actually going to move the needle? So knowing what that is then allows you to kind of have a scoring mechanism, which we put into the Shadow AI book, the ADAPT framework, of going, what does it look like when you combine how much of a metric you can move here? How easy is the implementation here? Like taking the factors of your business, the security, stability, the ease of implementation, and the benefit of the implementation. So you have a adjusted ranked system that says, okay, this might not be the biggest ROI, but it's the easiest to get to. This thing has the best ROI, but it's actually a really hard problem to solve. Let's put them in a meaningful order and let's start working through them. And then the second or the third thing is at a board level is to start looking at the governance framework. Because one of the problems with AI is that by the time you regulate it, it's changed. So you can't say you can use this program but not this program. Like I was doing this book boot camp yesterday, and literally on the call, I announced, somebody asked me a question about IP ownership of imagery. And I said, yep, the latest ruling from the Supreme Court and the US Copyright Office is that AI-generated imagery cannot be assigned copyright. And as I was saying it, an alert came through saying US Copyright Office issues first copyright protection for an IP image. So literally, as it came out of my mouth, I'm like, well, that's wrong.
That was wrong.
So if you take a company the size of the ones that we're talking about here and Fred's talking about, where there's tens of thousands of people, you cannot sit in a boardroom and write up a doctrine that then gets pushed through the organization, because just the time of communication to push it from up here to the floor is longer than the AI cycle of innovation. So by the time people find out, it's already out of date. So what you have to do is create a governance framework. And what we recommended was, so for example, If the information we're dealing with is personally identifiable, it goes up a notch. If it involves children, it goes up another notch. If it involves health and biometrics, it goes up another notch, right? So that's one scale. Another scale is marketing and internal versus external comms. Is this thing that we're going to do going to be shared externally, yes or no? That's now another multiple. And then you kind of give yourself a scoring system and say, right, if we've just scored more than 25 points, it requires a sign-off up the chain. If it requires 10 to 25 points, the manager on site can make the call. And if it's less than 10 points, feel free, go for it, do what you want, use AI, that's amazing. So we found that that way of doing it allows a very flexible rule set that allows a company to be innovative and allows it to explore and allows it to find other solutions, but still allows the company as a suable entity to protect itself from a worst case scenario output. Now, there used to be a company called Habitat in the UK. And Habitat, at the beginning of the social media revolution, employed an intern and said, just get me 1 million views. And he took a picture of a table and put lines about Hitler and anti-Semitic lines and just flooded Habitat's social media with anti-Semitic lines with the pictures of Habitat tables and did his job. He got millions of views for Habitat and single-handedly killed a 100-year-old company. So we just have to, Habitat just doesn't exist anymore. It's gone. This one PR crisis was enough. Now, they were standing on the rooftops going, no, this wasn't us. This was an intern. We have already removed them. It was a mistake. We're sorry. Obviously, this is not our, but damage is done. The world is too fast. Information networks are too quick. If you turn around and say, yeah, sorry, that milk jug wasn't sanitized properly and we just spread salmonella to 3 million people in Utah, but it wasn't our fault because it was a contractor that was using some new AI technology. That's not a defense. So I think you have to look at these layers of risk and have flexible frameworks that just say, you're in that bucket, we do this. You're in that bucket, we do this. You're in that bucket, we do this.
Well said. And I think that would probably have a lot of implementation opportunities on the floor. I want to just thank you both for taking the time. This hour has flown by, and I can only imagine that it has for our guests as well. So, Fred, starting with you, where can folks follow you? I know we'll be having a separate conversation about your forthcoming book, so don't give away the secret sauce, but just where can folks learn more about what you're up to?
They can find me at my company website, Strategic Catalyst Solutions, and that direct you to all my points of contact. And one of the cool things, I attended a session recently that Peter held around your digital clone and naming your AI, etc. So very soon they'll be able to speak to my digital clone as well.
I think that's fantastic. Very cool. And I will put that in the show notes. And Peter, I mean, that's hard to live up to, but tell us about your books. And what the hell, if we want a digital twin, what do we do?
I've done, I think it's 5 bestsellers now. So we invented a program to teach people how to become a bestseller using AI as a ghostwriter. We've run it 128 times and we've succeeded 128 times. So this is a bit embarrassing. I've actually lost track of how many books I've written. I think it's 5. I think it's 5. But the first one I actually did manually, which is like this one this was the first book I did. You Can Be Proud or Rich. 52
wonderful. Life
lessons to live by. That took me 3 years. It now takes 3 days. But the best way to get in touch with me is at my socials. I'm Peter Swain 24/7 on everywhere. So Peter Swain 24/7. Love to hear from your audience. DM me any questions. I'll be happy to.
Yes, and we will. We'll put those links in the show notes.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all. It's just been an incredibly fast conversation. Fred, thanks for the real world insight into how this actually gets done in a manufacturing setting, and then Peter balancing that with how technology can augment that type of implementation. I think this is an episode that will be listened to multiple times by folks as they kind of go on this journey. And so thank you very much, y'all, for your time.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.